Wow. Thank you. Thank you. I was sitting here this morning and I've been thinking about my grandfather. My grandfather, he's deceased. And I was remembering when I was a little girl in Tennessee. And on their property, they have a church that they built many, many years ago. And the church is still there. And it's a little church. And so when you enter into the church, you would enter into the church back door like that. And on the right-hand side is where the mothers of the church would sit. And so my grandmother would sometimes be the only mother and the loudest mother on the left-hand side. And every now and then she would just, scream, "Hallelujah, hallelujah." That was her thing. And my grandfather would sit in the front pew. And he was a man of not too many words. He wouldn't say too many words, but you'd always hear him every now and then. He'd yell out, "Yes." And the preacher would say something, and he'd go, "Yes." Or the choir would sing a song, and the number would be so feeling, you'd hear him say, "Yes." And so I was sitting here this morning, and I could hear him when Vicki got up and said her prayer. I could hear him saying, "Yes." And when Like Minds got up to sing, I could hear him saying, "Yes." Gosh. So good. And you know what? It's just I'm thinking about him, but I swear his presence is here. His presence is here. If you don't think that there's one mind, one power, and one presence that is magnificent and that it's mighty, if his presence is here, a man who is steeped in Christian teaching, in the Baptist tradition, who could tell you everything about the Bible, if he's here, anything is possible. Anything is possible. So today we're talking about trust and proving it. It's our new theme for the month. This is our third week working with it. And Ernest Holmes says that there is a power for good in the universe and that we can use it. There's a power of good in the universe and we can use it. He says that this power is greater than we are. And at Agape, Ricky Byers, Beckworth, and Michael Beckworth, they have a song, and in the song, one of the lines says, "God is all there is. And if God is all there is, then everything is God." Then everything is God. So the principles we're going to be looking at today is this. We believe the ultimate goal of life to be a complete freedom from all discord of every nature, and that this goal is sure to be attained by all. We believe in the direct revelation of truth through our intuitive and spiritual nature, and that anyone may become a revealer of truth who lives in close contact with the indwelling God. We believe in the eternal goodness, the eternal loving kindness, and the eternal givingness of life to all. We believe in our own soul, our own spirit, and our own destiny, for we understand that the life of all is God. Trust, prove it. I want to start out with a reading today from Living the Science of Mind. And I'm reading from the chapter entitled Mental Technique for Spiritual Treatment. It starts on page 289. Ernest Holmes says, "Unless there were a definite method of procedure in spiritual mind healing, it could not be considered scientific. Unless a definite technique could be delivered, there would be no intelligent approach to the subject. Unless one could learn this technique and consciously apply it, it would not be universally applicable. But the science of mind is just as definitely scientific and just as positively based on an actual principle as any other science. The fact that we are dealing with invisible forces makes them no more intangible than any other force of nature with which we deal. All life is invisible, all energy is invisible, all causation is invisible. The principle of mind is invisible, and its practice is invisible, but its results are the Word made flesh. He says, we know that the clearer one's consciousness is, and the more definitely certain one is that spirit is the absolute cause of all, and that good alone governs, the more quickly will healing take place. We know that our silent recognition and realization elevate the consciousness to a place of greater power and make possible a more immediate manifestation. He says, one thing, however, we must be careful to avoid, and that is fooling ourselves. Our work rests upon demonstration, and whatever method we use, how much argument we employ, or whatever state of realization we may reach, we must prove our position. We must actually demonstrate that thought manifests in form in actual conditions in objective life. If thought is not manifesting in this way in our experience, we must work with ourselves until it does. We must never take no for an answer. To do so would be to repudiate the principle in which we believe and wreck our faith in it. Therefore, we must persist in our effort until the purpose we have in mind is accomplished in actual fact and not merely in fancy. We must always remember that proper use of the science of mind is not a practice through which we fall into a mental reverie as an escape from objective life. Our work is not done properly unless something happens as a result of it. This something that happens, we can always weigh and measure objectively. He says that treatment is not for the purpose of helping us to either to avoid reality or to endure unhappy situations. It is for the express purpose of changing situations, and unless situations or conditions are changed as a result of the treatment, we have missed the mark. Always, we must insist that we demonstrate our proposition, for our motto is to do is to know, and to know is to do. Trust, prove it. It's a matter, very simply stated, that either we are resisting or we are choosing to persist. Either we resist or we persist. That's the choice. That's what we're dealing with when we are in our work, our prayer work, and in our treatment, getting clear about what we want, knowing then and experiencing a demonstration in our life. If we resist, and when I say if we resist, I'm talking about our very own words. If we resist our own words, if we resist our own prayers, there can be no demonstration. But if we persist in getting back to the beginning, to God, then we will demonstrate and manifest, and we will begin to prove these principles in our life. It does us no good if nothing isn't changing in our life. No good. An intellectual understanding of the teaching will bring you nothing. Nothing at all. And so last week we said then that we had to look at our lives to see if things have changed. And certainly if things have changed for the better. If things have changed for the better, we should be able to see these changes. We should be able to see how we're living a more abundant life. how we're having or experiencing an abundance of peace in our life, or how we're experiencing an abundance of passion. I'm sorry, that too, but patience in our life. How we're experiencing more love in our life. You see, that our life has moved towards the abundant life. And so certainly if we've been in this teaching for a number of years, we should be able to see a change from 15 years ago, from 20 years ago, from 25 years ago, from 10 years ago, from 5 years ago. You should see a change in your life. Even from yesterday, if you've been praying, if you've been treating, you should see a change in your life. It's as instant as you want it to be. Demonstrations are as instant as you want them to be. Last week we said then that you had to examine your faith and realize that faith goes with acceptance and expectancy and not guilt, because faith that's going with acceptance and expectancy, that it leads you directly into a demonstration where your life will be changed. We talked about that last week, and so then we must have to get back to trusting in our faith to believe in the power for good that's greater than we are, that we can use. Our faith in believing that if God is all that there is, then everything is God. That's always our starting point. If God is all there is, then everything is God. Right here, right now. So, in every situation then, and in every circumstance in our life, if we're going to prove it, we get back to that point. Last week we also talked about, as the reading did this morning, about not fooling ourselves. Claiming that things have changed in our lives when they have not. And this isn't a teaching where we are just merely speaking words and thinking that the words, trying to somehow will the words that we speak to cause change in our life. If that's what we're doing, we're fooling ourselves. And you can know if you're doing that if nothing's changed. If nothing's changed from 15 years ago, if nothing's changed from 10 years ago, if nothing's changed from 5 years ago, if nothing's changed from a year ago, if nothing's changed from a day ago, you might be fooling yourself. And so we said not to be fooling ourselves. And that then is a matter of resisting and not persisting. To say that you are at peace when you are not at peace. Let's not do that. And last week we said then that the way that we do this, is through our prayer, through our treatments. That we have to begin to trust in our own prayers. That means you trusting in your prayers and me trusting in my prayer. Last week we said that if you are not praying, then that now might be a good time to start. It is your own prayer, your own words that will bring you the thing that you desire. And so if you haven't been praying, this is a good time to start praying. We said, as I've already said, we talked about faith, and that faith goes with acceptance and expectancy that leads to demonstration. You see, faith in God, that God is all that there is. An acceptance that I'm one with God, that you're one with God, that I'm one with all that there is. And an expectancy then that my words, the very words that I speak, because I'm one with God, then it makes it so that they are the divine words in me, through me, and as me then, that this divine law that there is, that it must act upon it then and bring a demonstration in my life. Check your faith out. See who it's going with. If it goes with guilt and uncertainty and doubt, you might want to quit it. When we begin to have faith, power in our own words, and we settle into a simple acceptance of our power through the words that we speak, and we can certainly expect a demonstration. So then in this teaching, for us, it is always a matter then of resolving things to thoughts. Resolving situations, resolving circumstances to thoughts. Because we believe that thoughts are things. So the only way to change things is through our thoughts. For us, it's a matter of resolving all things to thoughts. We believe that thoughts are things, so the only way to change things is through our thoughts. How do we do this? We slow down. We have to pay attention then to our thoughts. It's a practice, resolving things to thoughts. It's a practice resolving situations and circumstances to thoughts so that we can invite in a new thought about it to have a change. For there to be a new way of being, for there to be a new perspective about a thing, for us to see God anew in it, for us to see love around it. You see, for us to open up to compassion and empathy and patience and all of these things. So we have to slow down to see what thoughts we are sitting with. We have to slow down to see the story that we've told ourselves about the thoughts that we are thinking. How we do this, we have to slow down, look at the thoughts that we are thinking, and look at the story that we are telling ourselves about the thoughts that we are thinking. From our limited perspective, from one perspective. And if God is all there is, then there are many, 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 many perspectives. There's a whole lot going on that perhaps we don't see or we can't see. It doesn't matter, but since the stories most of the time that we're telling ourselves come from our own limited perspective, and it also tends to involve our feelings. Our stories also seem to come from a place of our feelings. And so, and that can cause a whole lot of shakeup. Because some of us, we don't even want to admit that we have feelings about something, that we have feelings about someone, that I have a feeling about something. And so some of us, we just skip right over the feeling. How you feel? No way. I'm okay. And then the other thing then is that it is our lack of acknowledging our feelings then that keeps us in the story. So if you never acknowledge that you feel a particular way about something, you stay in the story. That's when you get into that loop where it's going over and over and over and over. Yeah, that loop, right? So you get into that loop. Or, as we said last week, we are in a state of denial. When something has occurred in our life that we don't want to be experiencing, it goes something like this. What? That? Oh, I'm fine. See? I'm going to give it to you one more time. In your life, when something occurs, something small, something big, it doesn't matter. When we are in a state of denial, it goes something like this. What? That? Oh, I'm fine. See? It's denial. It's denial. And so we want to get where we become proficient at getting very, 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 very good at telling the story. We want to get very proficient at telling the story to ourselves, where we don't differentiate the parts that we've made up and the parts that are true. Getting very good at it means that we can differentiate that. Getting very good at telling the story, it means that we tell the whole truth and not telling a story that is absent and void of truth. So we have to get very good at telling the story. And see, you have not told the entire story if your story does not include